Hello everyone, and welcome back to more Limbus unit analysis and patch notes, this time for this week's update, which focuses on Cinq South Section 5 Director Don Quixote, and as well as the new Uptie 4 and Threadspin 4 updates, alongside a variety of other things. So let's just get started by looking at the new identity. There's only one new identity for this banner, that being the 3-star Cinq Dawn. So let's take a look.
림버스 컴퍼니! 좋은 아침일세! 오늘도 날씨가 화창하군. 어디? 이번엔 산책이라도 나가볼까? 치열한 결투였어. 그대들도 뛰어났네만. 다음 결투가 더 기다려지는군.
So, Cinq South Section 5 Director Don Quixote is one of the more unique units we've seen recently because of the fact that she doesn't use any of the 7 main status effects that Limbus is starting to get into the habit of using, those being Burn, Bleed, Tremor, Rupture, Gloom, Poise, and Charge. Instead, she's all about haste and bind and clash winning, stuff like that. She didn't even have the slightest hint of any of the other status effects. So, looking at her skills, her skill 1, Remise, is a 2-coin Pierce Lust skill. At X plus speed, gain more coin power, and on Clash Win, gain haste next turn. And we've got a little interesting effect on the second coin, Hit after Clash Win. We haven't actually seen something like this where it's hit after Clash Win. It's interesting because, Clash Win would have the exact same effect, but I guess it just shows that it happens on the second coin instead of just being as soon as you win the clash. And it just inflicts blind next turn. So if she's got high speed, she'll just roll better with each of the coins, and she binds the opponent and gives haste for herself after a clash. Once again, that's the overall theme of this unit. Because we move on to the skill 2, Fleche, a 2-coin Gloom Pierce skill. Now, before we get into the skill itself, the name is very noteworthy because Fleche is, of course, a fencing term, but we've already seen a card in Runa called Fleche from 7 Association of all things. So it's definitely interesting because Runa 7 Association was based on fencing, strangely enough, or at least that section was, section 4. But it seems like that might not be the case going forwards. I think that role has kind of been taken over by Cinq. We'll have to see though. But as to the actual use of this, on use gain haste next turn and Clash Win, deal more damage based on clash count. So the longer this attack keeps on clashing, gets even more and more damage. Now this happens with every skill. In case you didn't know this, each clash you do, even if it's a tie, it increases the clash count, which increases the amount of damage dealt by the victor at the very end of it. But this skill seems to just get even more of a bonus from that. Stuff like tying could be very nice for her. And this skill, similar to the first one, does inflict bind next turn. And if moving on to our skill 3, Salute, it is a 2-coin Pierce Pride skill. And this is an entirely Pierce-based unit, in case you couldn't tell. At X plus speed, coin power plus Y, similar to the first skill, probably gonna require higher speed, but be more of a buff, but we'll see. And Clash Win, it deals more damage based on the clash count, just like the skill 2. The first coin on hit declares duel, and the second coin on kill restores a SP for herself. Now, what does declare duel do? Well, I have actually included in the bottom right here what they said it does. In a clash between the unit that inflicted Declare Duel and the unit with the status, the Declarer has X plus X clash power and gains haste after a successful attack. And this lasts until, well, either the declared person dies or if the Declare Duel is used on a different target. So this is very interesting, and I'd love to see how much clash power it is. If it's 2 or 3, that's decent, I guess. It'll be very good in Abno fights where you can actually choose who you're targeting, but it'll be a little strange in other fights. And of course, just gaining haste from a successful attack, it sounds like it would be something like, oh, a single coin would be +1 haste next turn. So if you hit twice, you'd gain 2 haste, something like that. So it doesn't say amount of times per turn. So just every time you hit the person, after winning a clash, you just gain more haste, which synergizes very well with their skill 1 and skill 2, since the speed gives her even more of a buff. And moving on to her passives, or her defensive first, it is a evade. It's a pride evade. Now you'll notice this from the patch notes, but it seems like going forward, pretty much every defensive skill is going to be getting some sort of sin affinity. This whole thing of them not having affinities isn't going to be a thing much longer, and you'll see why later on once we get into the actual patch notes. And on evade, target loses SP. Simple enough. It's similar to Chromer, funnily enough. But the passive, a noble duel. If speed of all allies is higher than speed of all enemies, this unit deals more damage based on the speed difference between it and the slowest enemy. Now, I think it's pretty safe to say what the insane synergy here is going to be, and that is with Yisang's default ego, Crow's Eye View, because Crow's Eye View gives 3 haste to all allies next turn, which means this will probably always trigger unless you got a super slow person, and just being able to deal the damage. This just makes it so Dawn just does more damage, assuming this passive is easy enough to trigger. And the support passive is basically that, but for the fastest ally getting the bonus. So definitely a very interesting haste unit. Definitely can synergize well with some of the various haste things we've seen, but we'll have to see. I like it though. I'm kind of glad we're getting some units that aren't based on like the 7 status effects. Since they do they will get planned if we only get stuff around them, you know. But overall, very cool. So let's move on to the actual patch notes itself. But starting with the notes on the upcoming Tier 4 for Identity Uptying and Ego Thread Spinning. So with this upcoming update, Uptie and Threadspin 4 will be added for all identities in Ego. So starting out with the Identity Uptie 4. So what it says here is it's basically inconsistent what changes. Every identity has its own set of changes, but it can be base power, can be coin power, skill effects, coin effects, combat passive, or support passive. And it can be any of them, it could be all of them, it could only be one thing depending on what it is. We'll see. So, they've given an entire slew of examples here, showing literally everything Warp Mersault gains at Tier 4. So, because they've done this, I'm going to go through each of these and we're going to look at the changes to try and see if this is going to be a good measure of just how much they're going to change. This unit especially seems like he's getting a lot. So starting with his skill 1, it seems like the only change here is, I'm going to ignore the actual, like, the actual, like, offense power stuff for these because I don't know whether or not it is increasing or not. Especially because they're going to be changing a lot of attack power stuff. But looking at the other stuff, so now, the one change they're making to his skill 1 is that he gains +3 charge count on use on top of the 3 he gains on hit. Which is very nice. Warp Mersault has an awful time gaining charge, so being able to get 6 charge from his primary, and being able to get 3 charge no matter what in the other 3 if he actually wins the clash and hits, means that he'll have a much better time of building up charge thanks to this, which... very nice change. Now his skill 2 has a lot of changes, or not kind of, but at 5+ charge count, coin power +1. So if you use his skill 1 first turn and skill 2 second turn, he'll gain +1 coin power to this skill, turning into a 5+3 with 3 coins. And the only other change they've made to this one is his first 2 coins inflict 2 rupture instead of 1 rupture. Minor change, but it could be nice. His skill 3 has been changed from a 5+1 to a 5+2. Which, on itself, not bad. But then, if at 5+ charge count, coin power +1, so it becomes a 5+3 with 4 coins, which is significantly better than it was before. And if we look at all 4 of his coins, they've all had the same change. It used to be 2 charge for 1 defense level down, but it's going to be changed to 2 charge for 2 defense level down. Now, this isn't necessarily a buff. It's being anything that's bothering with the offense and defense levels isn't going to be exactly trustworthy because they're going to be changing that a lot. The main thing is the coin power here. The defense level downs is not too big of a thing, and we'll get to that eventually as well with some of the later patches. And his defense changing from a 12+3 to a 12+5 and gaining envy, which is why I think that we're going to be getting sin affinities on pretty much every single defense from now on. Maybe it'll only be on to Uptie 4 for some units, But it seems like if they're going to be doing it like this, they're going to be giving it to units just on release as well. There's kind of no reason to have them just gray for the first bit. And also gains combat start, gain +2 charge count. This is combat start, not on Clash Win, which means even if he doesn't actually use the defense, he'll gain +2 charge, which is decent. It's only 2, so it's not much. And his passive, so his support passive is unchanged, so we're not going to look at that, but his actual main passive is being changed, so it's going to be the exact same thing, but whenever he loses a clash, he also gains +1 charge count, up to 6 times counted independently of hits taken. So he can just gain even more charge thanks to this one, which is pretty nice. He loses clashes a lot, so it'll be nice to be able to actually get some benefits from losing clashes. That's enough for looking at that unit, because now, Ego Threadspin Tier 4. Now the changes that are made with the actual Ego skills is base power, coin power, skill effects, coin effects, and number of targets. Now the examples they've given here are both of Rhodion's 4th Match Flame, Awakening, and Corrosion. Now the Awakening, at first it might be hard to tell exactly what's changed, but I skipped over this for Mersault, but now every single skill has an attack weight. And this basically shows how many coins it targets. So 4th Match Flame is going from a 1 target to a 3 target. That's what the attack weight with the 3 dots means under the name of the 4th Match Flame. So just straight up being changed to a mass attack, that's a pretty good effect. And the Corrosion has a similar thing, but instead it's being changed from a 3 target mass attack to a 5 target mass attack. No other changes, exact same roll, exact same cost, exact same effects on hit. But yeah, that is very huge, that's for sure. Just being able to increase the amount of targets on Egos just by uptying them. But here's the issue. Resources required. Identity Uptie Tier 4 and Threadspin Tier 4 costs Ego Shards and Thread, and it costs a lot of them. And here's the thing. Base stuff is not going to be automatically uptied in Threadspin. You're going to need to spend Ego Shards and Thread to uptie base identities, and you're going to need them to Threadspin base Egos. And it's a lot of stuff. It's 100 Ego Shards and 150 Threads to uptie a He Ego, and it's 50 Ego Shards and 150 Thread for a 3-star identity. Slightly less for like the 1 stars, the Zanes, the 2 stars, the Teths, but it is still a lot. Effectively 70 Thread just to uptie one of the 1-star units. Not really worth it. We're gonna need some sort of Luxcavation. We're gonna need a better ability to get Thread if this is gonna be like maintainable at all. So like the 21 Thread per day just by spending like the 6 modules to do the Luxcavation 3 times does not seem like it's gonna cut it when that's, you know, basically a 1/4 of uptying a 1-star unit. But that's all for that. It seems promising. There's definitely some tweaking that needs to be made though, because it is not going to be sustainable at all to be able to get units up. Now, moving on to the actual patch itself. The update's going to come out normal time this week, nothing special there. New target extraction for Cinq being added, and of course Uptie and Thread Spinning Tier 4. So some of the other update contents, add a button to change the amount of information displayed on combat screen. Now it's not saying exactly how much it changes. I assume max is what it was before. Maybe it was at mid before. And it's saying that it's set to min by default, but it should be set to max. So max is probably what we've seen before. You can reduce the amount of stuff on screen if you don't like the clutter, which definitely makes sense to do if you know what you're doing. Now, aggro system added. Each identity columns will now have aggro values attached to them. Focused counters, enemies are more likely to attack slots with higher aggro values. That's nice. It gives tanks a little bit of a better use, especially against Abnos, since, you know, that's the only time it'll actually matter who gets targets who. And they'll be able to just take hits more, which is very important for tanks. An attack weight UI added. This is what I was talking about before with the mass attacks. So now AoE and target X slots text have been removed. Instead, every skill has an attack weight to it, with 1 attack weight meaning a single target, 3 attack weight is 3 target, 5 attack weight is 5 target. Simple enough. Now, they are showing another identity and ego here, so why don't we take a look and see what their upties look like, what the uptie for this one looks like. So we can get a better look of aggro here, and focus encounter slots with higher aggro values are more likely to be targeted by enemies. And it seems that her primary is going to give her +2 aggro to that skill slot next turn. And the other change to this one, the coin power is the same, but the first coin now requires a hit instead of heads hit for the poise count, and on Clash Lose she gains 2 poise count. So no matter what, she should gain 2 poise count. If she loses the first coin and then succeeds with the second, then she'll only get 1, but otherwise she'll probably get poise count more consistently with this one. And she'll be able to just take the hit since she is supposed to be like a tank unit. And for Pursuance, a simple change being made here, it's going to be a mass attack. They're changing it from a normal ego to a 3-target ego. No other changes. That's insane because Pursuance is already super good as it is. Absolutely insane change to make. But continuing on with the patch notes, Mirror Dungeon 2 hard reward collection system changed. They talked about this a while back. Basically, you're only going to need to do Mirror Dungeon 2 hard once a week to get all the rewards. Pretty nice. And modified Clash Win loss odds display conditions. So now whenever it says dominating, whenever it says hopeless, it's more accurate. Dominating is changing from 80% win to requiring at least a 90% win, and hopeless should only display if you've got less than a 10% chance of winning. Now it's not saying if they've actually fixed like how like some of the like negative coins work, if they'll actually calculate whether or not they think negative coins will win clashes. Hopefully they will with this though, especially if they're changing how it works, because Grip Sinclair display is completely wrong. And changes the offense-defense levels. They talked about this before, but offense-defense levels getting completely reworked. How identities have them is being completely reworked. And their examples here is Mersault. Now I'm also using this to take a look at how they've changed Mersault. His primary is literally the only change here seems to be they're changing it from a 2+4 to a 3+4. That could be a +5. It's hard to see what the actual coin value is in this image because it's so low quality. So it could be like 3+5 maybe, but no, it's just a 1 power up, which is a really sad change. And you can also see here, his guard is being changed to a sloth defense, and it's getting a +2 to base power. Pretty lame. It makes me wonder if uptying base units is going to be worthwhile, because this looks awful if this is like what they've been changing. But yeah, major changes. Pretty much literally everything that inflicted offense or defense level down is being changed to make up for it. I'm not going to go over all of these because it's literally just the things that have offense level downs and defense level downs change. But yeah, it's simple enough. So a lot of base egos and their passives are being changed. No, it's mostly passives for all of them. The only base ego that's actually being changed is Sinclair's is being changed, so instead of a 2 attack power down, he's going to lose 10 SP and heal SP if it's a Tails. Which is an interesting way to go about doing it, that's for sure. And a lot of these passives are being changed. Stuff like Crow's Eye View's passive is no longer 5 bind, it's 3 bind. Don Quixote's passive is going to just heal her if the target is bleed. And of course, the one that's really sad to see here is the fact that it's going to nerf Heathcliff significantly. When another ally defeats an enemy, gain 1 attack power up and 1 haste instead of 2 attack power up and 2 haste. And it's to a max of 3 now, which is sad. Body Sack was funny, but like, that's fine. No longer has the downside of Fragile. Rodion also no longer has the downside of losing 10 SP whenever something dies. Instead, she heals more SP and loses more SP whenever she heals or loses SP, which manages to convey the idea well enough. Makes it so her default ego is going to be a lot better overall. So if gain damage on next turn if she didn't get hit, it's being changed to if not hit once by an attack this turn, gain 1 damage up. Next turn can stack up to 3 turns. So if she doesn't get hit for 3 turns, she can gain 3 damage up, I think. Which is, they're buffing Two Pathos Mathos. Incredible, like, move. And it seems like Gregor has SP loss. They're doing a lot with these SP heal efficiencies and SP loss efficiencies. Interesting stuff, that's for sure. But yeah, they're changing a lot of this stuff. Some of it's sad. And here's kind of a big thing. Sun Shower SP loss condition added. So now he loses SP upon clash loss. So he loses 10 SP. If he loses a clash, he loses 10 SP. He's the only unit who gets this. That's... They're actually going to buff Sunshower Heathcliff. Will it be enough to make him, like, busted? No, but this will be nice. The fact that he can just do poorly in order to do better afterwards. and fixed an issue where a dead center support passive would activate during combat. I didn't know that was a bug. It's been like that the entire time, I think. Interesting. And of course, 300 lunacy, and that's all for the patches. So yeah, a lot of interesting changes. Uptie 4 is going to be rough to start out, that's for sure, but we'll be able to see just how much changes. It'll be exciting. I'm going to be streaming as soon as the update comes out on the update day, so feel free to join me then. But otherwise, thank you for watching, and I'll see you guys next time. Bye.